Welcome to my very first archive video. I was completely overwhelmed by how much you enjoyed the archive section in the Ghosts of Liverpool video. I was amazed actually, and it seemed appropriate to create a new playlist where I can showcase some of my items that perhaps relate to some of my ghostly videos, that sort of thing. And today all of the items that I'm going to share with you have a sort of aviation theme. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the thanks button below the video, or you can use the Ko-fi link in the About section. And your generosity, which is ever so kind, really does help me to continue to make content that I hope you'll enjoy. Let's have a little look at the archive. So the first item that I have for you today is a British Airways first class menu for a flight that flew from Dallas Fort Worth to London Gatwick. And I'm not exactly sure how old it is, but I've seen very similar ones, and they were from 1987, 1988, that sort of time frame. So let's have a little look at the menu. Flight time was 9 hours and 30 minutes, and we're going to have a champagne dinner. I bet you weren't expecting that today. Let's have a look. We've got the bar menu. There would have been a separate wine list. I don't have one of those, but I did see one the other day, and I noticed that the champagne that was listed on the wine list is Mum Cordon Rouge. Welcome to this overnight flight to London and our new style of meal service, which has been especially tailored to provide you with the opportunity for maximum rest and enjoyment of our sleeper seats. The reference to the sleeper seats does sort of date this menu. I found out when I had a look online that these seats were installed on some of the planes in the early 1980s, and they were replaced in the mid-1990s by a sort of fully reclining bed-type seat. This was one of the first fully horizontal seats, pretty much, on a commercial airline, these sleeper seats. And you can see an advert here from the 1980s. Very 1980s clothing. Rather smart. Yeah, these are the newer seats. These were the ones that came out in the mid-1990s. Let's have a look back at the menu. You've got your appetisers, smoked salmon and papaya with German ham. I'm not sure that veal sweetbreads would make it on the menu these days. I don't think that would be terribly popular. And you know, I don't think I've ever had soup on a plane. I don't think I've ever had that. It sounds probably very dangerous to me. I'd probably get it everywhere, no doubt. So the main courses, you've got beef and sea bass. I think those would still be on the menu today. I think the vegetarian option sort of sounds like a nut roast, which in the 1980s was quite a common go-to vegetarian option. And I was vegetarian for many, many years, and people would always say to me, "What do you eat on Christmas Day? Nut roast?" And it used to drive me around the bend. There's nothing wrong with nut roast, but they were very much perhaps a veggie option back in the day. And then you've got your vegetables. I don't think I've ever seen turnips on a plane, on a menu actually, on an aeroplane menu. You don't see turnips very often as a vegetable, to be honest, do you? Anyway, I think we'd probably be pretty full after that, and then it would be time to dim the lights, and then you probably fall asleep in your sleeper seat. And then we've got breakfast, which is pretty straightforward, all nice stuff, really. We can have some more champagne if you want to get off the plane and be a bit worse for wear. I did have a look to see how much a first-class return ticket from Dallas Fort Worth to Heathrow would cost today, and the prices vary, but just randomly, the lowest price I got was $7,000, which is about £5,500, and the top end was about $9,400, which is about £7,300 sterling. Anyway, I hope you like that little menu. The next thing that I've got is also from the 1980s. We're going to stay in the 1980s for a little bit longer, and this relates to Concorde. And this is a commemorative cover, a souvenir postcard in a special envelope from a specific Concorde flight. And some people pay so much money for stuff with Concorde. This is not terribly valuable, but some of the stuff is really, really valuable. I do have another Concorde item, but I'm going to save that for another video for you. And this was to do with an air show, this little certificate. So you can see it didn't go up in the air for very long, and it wasn't going at supersonic speed. It was just part of an air show. But I thought it was quite nice. If you are interested in the stamp that had Diana, Princess of Wales, please stay tuned. I've got some more stamps with her on them at the end. They seem to have reissued quite a lot of stamps recently to do with the death of Queen Elizabeth II and all sorts of stuff. I'll show you those at the end. And the next item I have is Concorde related to. After the Concorde was retired in 2003, the Cambridge Stamp Centre went on a mission to ask Concorde pilots to sign copies of those envelopes. They wanted to commemorate Concorde and sell these signed envelopes to dealers and that sort of thing. And from what I understand, the captains and the crew would often sign the covers on Concorde for the passengers. And this letter is signed by Captain Peter Baker, who was a Concorde pilot, but he was also a test pilot when the aircraft was being created. And here's a picture of the flight crew stood on the steps of Concorde 001 after her first landing at Filton on the 10th of August 1972. And Peter Baker, who was the test pilot at this time, is the man on the very right-hand side in the sort of dark green jumpsuit. And here's another picture of Peter. He's second from the left. He's wearing a navy blue blazer. And I don't know if he's deceased. He might well be, I'm not really sure. But they would donate the fee that they would get to air ambulance charities, that kind of thing. And now we're going to have a little look at some postcards. And this one was dated the 5th of June 1964. And it comes from Heathrow, although at that time I think it would have been London Airport. Having nice weather. Got to Windsor 11:30. Drove straight to the airport. Have 4 hours to spend here. Disappointed not to see Castle. Wonderful to watch the planes coming in and out continuously. Thanks for your letters. We'll write soon. Have visitors tomorrow. Terrific noise from the jets. Saw planes take off for Cork, Glasgow, New York, Philadelphia. Anne. And at the top on the left-hand side she's written, bought myself a new dress. And I just love it because I think you get that feeling of excitement. She's clearly, so proud of her new acquisition. This next one is a bit newer. It's from 1980, so it would have been Heathrow by then. Dear Susan, it is very cold here, but sunny, so we had a lovely day in Kew Gardens yesterday. Last night, at the Albert Hall, we heard the massed bands of the Guards. In the finale, they fired guns. Frightened me to death. Love from Auntie Dee and Uncle Les. I love that because that would frighten me to death if they were to fire guns in the Albert Hall, especially if you're not expecting it. Goodness me. This next postcard is from South Africa, from Johannesburg, and it's from a British person who was working out there. Greetings. This city is like most other modern grid pattern creations. My first meeting was over breakfast at 7:30, so not having much time for sightseeing, which is most frustrating being close to so much beauty. I think that's so lovely, that line. At the weekend, went water skiing and stayed upright, well, after one failure. Played tennis at Dennis Yankelo's home. And I found out who Dennis Yankelo is, and I believe he made his money in aviation insurance and pensions. Don't know whether he's still alive, but that was certainly his area of expertise. Played tennis at Dennis Yankelo's home, a lovely thatched single story, even the garage is thatched. Managed to crawl, in a 5-mile race Tuesday evening, but the altitude hurt. Hope that life has started to turn the corner for you, and perhaps one day you'll be able to visit South Africa after all the other countries on your list. Waiting for a business lunch. The wine is good, but the topics. Love to you all. And I wonder who she's writing that to. It sounds like that person might have been quite ill. And this next item also has a South Africa link to it. This letter was written in Montego Bay in Jamaica in 1939, and I think it's quite moving. Let's have a little look at the text and then I'll explain a few things that I discovered after I acquired it. Dear Barnes, in a Dartford chronicle I have just received from home, I learn with much grief of the passing of your good father and hasten to assure you and your sister of my deep sympathy in your sorrow. I have always held your father in much esteem, not only on account of his great ability in his trade, but he was in many ways a class of man of whom any firm would be proud, and we shall be all the poorer for his loss. I like to feel that death is not an end, but really the gateway to a new and higher life, in which we have reason to believe we shall meet our old friends again. I, for one, look forward to meeting him again. Best wishes, with renewed sympathy. Yours sincerely, Everard Hesketh. The hotel depicted on the writing paper was built in 1903, and originally it was called Harrison's Hotel, and it was sold and renamed Montego Bay Hotel in 1906. And then in 1921 it became the Ethelhart Hotel, named after its owner, and it became quite a trendy place for Brits to go during the winter months. And it sort of promoted itself as a hotel with healthy air and health benefits. And then in May 1964, the hotel was completely destroyed by a fire, and the damage was estimated to be about £50,000. And the insurance company wouldn't pay up, and it went to court over many, many years because the insurance company said it wasn't working as a hotel at that time. It didn't have occupants, that kind of thing. So there was a bit of a legal battle over it. And the writer of the letter, who sounds like a really rather lovely man, was Everard Hesketh, and this is a portrait of him, and he lived from 1854 until 1942. And this portrait is at the Dartford Borough Museum in Kent, and he was educated at Marlborough College and King's College in London, where he won a scholarship at an engineering firm. And he went on to become a business partner and an owner of a company, and he was an absolute pioneer in refrigeration, of all things. And in 1887, he developed some new efficient techniques for frozen foods, that kind of thing. And by 1955, around 60% of the world's cargo ships were fitted with his equipment, the equipment by Halls of Dartford, which was his company. And as you can imagine, this made Everard Hesketh a very wealthy man, and he was really fed up of seeing property developers snapping up and building on all the land in Dartford. So he decided to buy 2.5 acres of land, and he donated it to the town to preserve its use for local people forever. And it was named Hesketh Park as a mark of gratitude. And then he bought another expanse of land in Dartford and donated that to the town too. And that's now where Dartford Cricket Club are based. And the park also has a bowling club, tennis courts, children's play area, a bike track and a basketball court. And I just think what an amazing gift to the people of Dartford, so generous. And the park is still popular today. And he retired aged 73 in 1933, and then he moved over to South Africa. He moved to Johannesburg in 1934, and then he passed away in South Africa in 1942, aged 88. And I had no idea about the history of this wonderful man, but I'm so glad I found out about his legacy. What a wonderful man he was to have been so generous to the people of Dartford. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed having a little look at these archive things, and if you're feeling generous, like I said, and you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the thanks button below the video, or you can donate via the Ko-fi link. And any generosity, any gift is so kind and it's so important, and I hope that I can continue to make content that you're going to enjoy. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please feel free to leave a comment, and I'll see you next time.